Swamiji is not here, so I won't be introduced. Just in case you don't know me. I would like to start with just a short prayer and my own personal background, because this, I think, is right to the topic of our conversation today. Om Jayanti Jagadananda Vipakshakshapadakshamā Paramesha Mukhadbhuta Jnana Chandra Marichaya Jayanti Jagadananda Vipakshakshapadakshamā Paramesha Mukhadbhuta Jnana Chandra Marichaya Jayanti Jagadananda Vipakshakshapadakshamā Paramesha Mukhadbhuta Jnana Chandra Marichaya Paramesha Mukhadbhuta Jnana Chandra Marichaya. One of the most important texts in Tantra, Shastra, composed by Maheshwara Acharya Abhinavagupta, starts with the praise of his father and mother, physical father and mother, as resonating, reflecting the divine mother and father. I would like to recollect my grandmother, Uma Devi, who taught me when I was a very little kid, maybe 3 or 4 years old. And Babu is for little child, they say in Nepal. Just put your hands like this and chant these songs, 1 line, 2 lines, always with some sweets at the end. Very little I knew that my illiterate grandmother had inherited the Krama system of Kali, and she was teaching me these songs of 12 Kalis. I took my sacred thread when I was 5. They counted from the womb because they wanted to give me the rituals quickly. And my father started teaching me the Vedas. We had a little Gurukula in our own house, traditional school of learning. Upon 6 months or maybe 9 months of passing that learning the first 6 chapters, and learning simply meant memorizing, not even understanding the word of the Vedas. One day, my father, there's a long story, but just cut it short, brought like a huge Shiva Linga placed in front yard and said, I hereby appoint thee as the priest of worshipping Lord Shiva. Shiva is the primary deity of Tantra. And Shiva is never separated from Shakti. Actually, if I tell you what Shiva is a forest. And Shakti is the trees. If you cut down the trees to find the forest, you are not going to find any. Shiva is the collected name of all the Shaktis. Shiva is not separate from Shakti. Shiva makes the decisions, and that becomes the decision for Shakti. Like your ego makes the decision for your body, and your body moves all your sensory faculties, the indriyas, all your bodily movements occur as you command. Shiva is the central command. That central command in you is Shiva. I was worshipping Lord Shiva with the Vedic mantra. There you go for the confluence of Veda or Vedanta, because Vedanta is the last section of the Vedas, and then the Tantra. I left home at the age of 12 because my father said, "This is all I can teach you, my son. You have to go and explore your future," which I did faithfully. After 12 years of limbo and darkness and not knowing where to go, at the age of 16, I was picked up literally from the street by two of my gurus. One guru, Ramananda Brahmachari, taught me Vedanta. He was a scholar and also a monk in the order of Shankara. He taught me not just Vedanta, but also Mimamsa and Nyaya and all other Shastras. That same week, with absolutely no connection at all, I landed in the room of Prem Chetan Brahmachari, who trained me for the next 14 years rigorously in Tantra Shastra. His own path, called Sarva Amnaya, is an assemblage of all 92 agamas, and it synthesizes from every single tradition of Tantra. It does not rely just one particular Kali or Tripura Sundari. It weaves the deities and complex visualizations. That is the Guru tradition. Okay, that may be my Guru tradition. How can that reflect a wider category? We are talking about Vedanta and Tantra just because I happen to have these two gurus. One was a Vedantin, another was Tantric. And am I trying to make something new, like cooking up? Because everybody seems to be cooking up things these days. For that, I can give you more references of my gurus. One, Shankara Chaitanya Bharati, if Lord Shiva is still living in human body, I vouch for you that that is the person, Shankara Chaitanya Bharati. He's 107 years old, and if you happen to go to Benares and see him, he will scold you for going to see him and not going to Lord Shiva. He doesn't like, and he was like that since when I was young. He never liked people coming, praising, or disturbing anything. Just mind your business. Do your sadhana, surrender to the Lord. But that is still not enough, because you want a deeper history. Let me give you this. All the Shankaras, Mathas, have necessarily a tradition of Sri Yantra worship, in which you have, on the one hand, the leadership on Vedanta, on the other hand, the epitome of tantric practices in the form of Sri Vidya is worshipped in every Shankara's Matha. There is the confluence of Vedanta and Tantra for you. What if even that does not satisfy you? Whether or not the first Shankara, but the Shankaracharya in the lineage have composed the prominent texts such as Saundarya Lahari, Prapanchasara Tantra, more texts to combine Vedanta and Tantra. My guru's guru, one of the guru's gurus, dropped his name from Vidyaranya, the forest of wisdom, to Murkharanya, the forest of stupidity. And he was supposed to be Shankaracharya, and he fled overnight, leaving Joshimath, and ran during the dark and crossed the border and came to Kathmandu. And for 30 years, nobody even knew who that ghoulish person was meditating inside the cave right next to Pashupati. He never let anyone know. He has given the manuals for Sarva Annaya. I'm giving you these foundations so that the Guru Parampara is very clear. And I am not making up anything. But Guru Parampara is so rich that I am hardly even a simulation of that originality. Like, you should not be confused with a little towel that smells like musk with the original musk. Gurus have left little fragrance. That's all that I am. What about this thing we hear about Vedanta as, world denying, and Tantra as world affirming, Vedanta body denying, Tantra body affirming, Vedanta sex denying, Tantra sex affirming, and all these things. These all are the issues of commentary, and I would say we have gone somewhere wrong. We have to course correct. If we see there's a philosophical gap, we have to course correct. And I call this philosophical sickness. We are told being in love is a disease that needs cure. We are told desire is the root of all sufferings. I myself have been told I need a guru, I need a mantra to cure myself because my heart feels. And in its pangs, the entire world comes to life, and songs are made and love sprouts. We are told this body is bondage. This world is a trap. Our relations are illusion, and our life a nightmare. We are asked to be like a rock, not take life seriously, and not expect anything from life. And we are told escapism is the ultimate goal of life. I tell you this, I did not need the Buddha to know we are here momentarily. I did not need Shankara to tell me relations are fragile. I do not need your cure because, my friend, I love. And I know this cannot last forever. And I savor it because I love its transiency. I have slept hungry in the streets of Kathmandu and Varanasi, but I have never taught despair, but hope. For when you were not there for me, there was Mother Kali with her blue body and shiny eyes. I'm the same boy who ran through the fields of Topal. I know my aging, and I know my life is not forever. And this has taught me not to deny, but to savor. For I can. You do not dare say, I have not suffered enough to still be enchanted with the world. For my friend, you do not know my past. And I grieve and I cry, and sometimes I get furious. I worship Rudra, the Lord of Fury. I have embraced what the world has offered, both its nectar and its toxins. And I tell you, there is no Vedanta of despair but hope. And all the illusions you are taught are by them who fail to experience the world, but read their books and went to caves. There are two philosophies, my friend, in the world. The philosophy of Maitreyi, she was the wife of Yajavalkya. The philosophy of Maitreyi and the philosophy of Yajavalkya, the main philosopher in the Upanishad. Yajavalkya knows everything but a pulsating human heart. Maitreyi knows nothing but love and care. Yajavalkya says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Everything is lovely for my personal sake. That is why I need to know who this is. I need to go to forest to know this. Maitreyi is begging him to not go. And Maitreyi does not understand this. For her entire life, she never separated her Atman from that of Yajnavalkya. She never knew there was some separation. If I were to write a history of Vedanta and Tantra, and if I had to find a point of departure, I would go back to this conversation between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi. Sometimes do not take this little household disputes lightly. Look what happened. Yajnavalkya went to forest, and a whole bunch of philosophers started doing that. You know, Buddha did that. Yajnavalkya went to forest some 300 years before the Buddha and made that as a standard for the philosophers. And Mahavira did that, and a bunch of other people, because that's what happens. You know, the great people start and other people follow. But I do not think that that is the only Vedanta out there. A Vedanta of caves is not the Vedanta for the world, for the life we are living in. We need the type of Vedanta that allows us to embrace our reality and be at the moment, be capable of enjoying, including our body. And for that, I will just cite a few verses with you today from the Yoga Vasishtha, because my Guruji, my Tantra Guruji, Prem Chetan Brahmachari, loved this book so much. But before I knew him, my grandmother, who didn't know any of the verses from this book, did know most of the stories from this. And she told these stories when we were children. I didn't know I was being taught Vedanta. I was only listening to fairy tales in my understanding. Why I have found this book a confluence of Tantra and Vedanta is because I will give you some really clear, and I'm not even doing some meticulous research. I'm running with the courses and so many things going on. I'm just scanning through book, and whatever quickly within 10 minutes I can come across. And I focus, what is the fundamental thing that makes a tantric philosophy more world embracing? And nobody needs to tell you that Yoga Vasishtha is a Vedanta book. In this Vedanta book, I'm offering you the philosophy of Tantra, the philosophy of Trika, and only focusing on the Spanda, the doctrine of pulsation, the doctrine of vibration, that the Shiva, the ultimate, the absolute, is constantly pulsating. And just like our heart is pulsating, the heart of Shiva pulsates, and in this pulsation we come into being, the worlds come into being, all the Shaktis express themselves. And this pulsation example, Spanda example, is set in the metaphors and the discourses in the Yoga Vasishtha just as the same. Yat aspandam shivam santam yat spandam trijagat sthitihi spanda spanda vilasatma ya eko bharita kritihi. This is the not the Spanda Karika, because it sounds so much like Spanda Karika if you have read any Trika texts, but this is Yoga Vasishtha, by the way. The absolute in the form of Shiva is in its tranquility, and when it pulsates, there is this tripartite world, and so it is both playing in the form of pulsation and no pulsation, and this is one replete with all the forms. But this Bharitakriti is a very good term here, because this is not just replete with all the forms. This is how we describe Bhairava in the Tantric texts, as a Bharitakriti. So Bhairava is again the absolute divinity in the call of Tantra practices. And so why is he choosing Purnakriti, or somewhere else he could choose, but Bharitakriti, this replete with forms in the form of Bhairava. Atmaiva spandate vishwam, what pulsates in the form of the world is your very self. Atma eva spandate. Vastu jatai iboditam, as if arising in the form of different materiality, different objects. Taranga kanakallolai anantam bambudavivam. Taranga kanakallolai, with the tides and the splashes of the droplets of the water in infinite waters in the ocean, like splashing. What happens is this very self splashes, surges up. It's what is the word I call that? This is the surplus of bliss. Shiva and Shakti have fun, and the word comes, this is the surplus. It's not suffering. And why do we feel pain then? If we are not able to feel pain, we won't be able to feel love and happiness and joy and everything also. It's a package. Yatha vanyosnayo satta nasam bhavati bhinnayo tathaiva karma manasos tathatma manasorapi. Another passage in the text said, just like you cannot conceive of the existence of fire and heat separately. You cannot separate the fire, and this is the heat, by the way, because fire and heat are inseparable. Then the same way, the Atma, the self, and the mind, and karma, your actions, and the mind are inseparable. This mind, mind comes to Sukshma Sharira, corporeality already. And the Atman, the self, the basis, the manifest mind is the manifest form, and Atman is the foundation. What it is saying is the heat is like the mind, its expression of the fire as the self, the foundation. the basis. And so what we have, Navahner Dahika Shakti Vyatirikta Vibhavyate Kevalam Jnana Saptayam Praramboyam Praveshane. You know, in Tantra again, one of the really absolutely important agama text is Vijnana Bhairava. You all should read that. It will help you understand Vedanta better. And the example there goes is that you cannot conceive of the separation of the fire and the heat. That is the same metaphor that Yoga Vasishtha is using to describe our transcendent self and its manifest modalities of the mind and the meditation and our action, which means our body too, because when actions are included, we also include our body. Kinchit Shubhita Rupasa Chit Shakti Chin Maharnave Tanmai Chit Spurat Kyacha Tatrai Vormi Rivarnave. Let me explain this to you. Kinchit Shubhita Rupa, it is of the form of slightly disturbed, slight agitated, slightly moving. Satit Shakti, this very power, potency in the form of consciousness, in this great ocean of being, of consciousness, this consciousness stirs. There is this slight pulsation, slight or zeal to be, to express, to actualize, and to embrace the manifolds. And that is what happens. Tanmayi chit spurati, and the consciousness manifests in such and so form. So in the pure form, tatraiva vormi varnave. Just like in the ocean, you have some differences arising, like the tides or the waves or the whirlpool, and you give all the names. It's the splash of water. What is it? From the perspective of the ocean, it is always the same. From the perspective of the tides and the whirlpool and the splashing drops and droplets of water, they are infinite and endless. This is the agitation. And this agitation is not coming from outside, because this is the intrinsic nature of consciousness, to be able to be pulsating spondatma, constantly pulsating. If your consciousness stops pulsating, you are dead. But consciousness, we say, doesn't stop pulsating, even then that consciousness has left this body, that's it. The nature of consciousness is such that it does not stop knowing, because I have the consciousness and I totally do not know anything. Just try imagining that statement. When you have consciousness and you do not know anything, you are conscious of not knowing anything. Your consciousness is still active. This is the game Shankaracharya played first against the Madhyamaka Buddhists, who said, we have reached emptiness. Shankara asked, how do you know that? Oh no, we have it, we have experienced it. Then you have consciousness then. Shankara just goes back to say, yeah, then you are simply confirming what I have been telling you. Duh, you know, that was his logic. Shivasya anantarupasya saisa chinmatratatmana. Shivasya anantarupasya. What is Shiva? Of the endless form, Anantarupa. And his Chinmatratatman, his Atman, is of the form of consciousness only. Esha hi Shakti ityukta tasmat bhinna managapi. This very pulsation in the form of Shiva, because it's a Shivasya Ananta, you know, endless form, and those very Shiva's form we confirm as the Ichha, Shakti of Lord Shiva. Itukta, and so it is never separated from Shiva. Are we talking some tantric texts? I should remind, this is Yoga Vasishtha, by the way. We are discussing Shiva and Shaktis and this harmony and the pulsation and the continuity. Gyatva, kartritva, bhoktritva, sakshitva, adi vibhavanat. So then you start imposing various identities of being the knower, being the agent, being the enjoyer, being the witnessing consciousness, and such and so you become different subjects. Your subjectivity unfolds in so many different ways, for referring to the body, the mind, the ego, the empty space, and all the higher planes of your modes of consciousness. And you have named yourself differently to referring to these different states of your being. For Shaktayo Vividham Rupam Dharayanti, the text says these potencies intrinsic to Shiva assume multiple forms. This is the Shaktis being expressed. Now, how are these Shaktis, potencies, expressed out, and in what form? If the Shiva is a singular, unitary, if you say Shakti and Shiva, then it's a dualism. That would be general objection from the Advaita perspective. So Yoga Vasishtha also has the answer to that. Chit Jagat Valanam Pasya, see the fluidity, conversion of the consciousness and the world. Varhande Rasa Varhinam, like in the peacock egg, the yolk, the fluid inside, in the peacock in the form of the fluid, that's not as yet. What is it there? Just the yolk. Yatha jagati chittatam chittatte yat jagat tatha. Just like in the consciousness is the world, there is consciousness, there is the world inside consciousness too. There is no separation of the world and consciousness. Nana nanatmakaikam cha mayurandaraso yatha. So the text confirms again, just like the fluid of the peacock egg, it is many and one at the same time. What is he talking about? This is what we call latencies. Why is the peacock? Because peacock is the best bird to display like million arrays of color. If you just crack, don't do that, but you can imagine the egg, there are no colors there. You can't see any color. Oh, by the way, let's use some, electronic microscope or something. You can't see because there's no color there. What is there? There is the potency, Shakti. That's what we mean by Shakti. There is the potency. Yatha negro the bijasta mahadruma. There's just like in the banyan, like a Jagad Shakti Rupo Mahadruma, inside the seed of a banyan tree. That is, banyan is chosen for a very small seed. And then look at the tree, the ginormous, really one of the largest trees in the world. Tatha Hridaya Bijastham Jagad Etat Characharam, like in the heart, the seed in the heart is this entire world situated. And this one I trade. This is not from Yoga Vasishtha, but from Paratrisika. But look at the seamless continuity. The same metaphors are going and same type of conversation happening. Grahya grahaka sambandhe samanye sarvadehinam yoginah savadhanatam yattad archanamatmana. Yoga Vasishtha describes Grahya graka sambandhe samanya sarvadehinam. What is common to yogis and the ordinary persons is the relation between grahya, the objects of our consciousness, and grahaka, the subject, you. It is common, the text says, but what is special about the yogi? Yogina savadhanatvam, that is this attentiveness in which or through which they perform the worship of the self, recognize the self. This self-recognition in the yogic mode is different from ordinary mode of knowledge. A yogi is in the world, still touching, feeling, tasting, enjoying, but he still also has this higher meta gaze of the self, and that is where he's surrendering to the empty void of pure consciousness. That is also effulgent and blissful. That is what constitutes the difference between a yogic episteme, a yogic way of knowing, and the ordinary way of knowledge. So Bhairavas, now Yoga Vasishta again talking about Bhairava, the ultimate divinity in Tantra, all Tantra in particularly. So Bhairavas Chidakasaha Shiva iti avidiyate. This pure Chidakasa is one of the most common examples in Advaita Vedanta. The Chit Akasa, the sky of consciousness. You read any of the Advaita Vedanta text, you are going to get this sky of consciousness. And what is this? This is replete with bliss and being, and that repleteness is what the Tantrics depicted as Bhairava. Little crazy looking eyes, and then you all are spooked. Oh my gosh, Bhairava is crazy God, I can't have it. It's a metaphor for its joy in the ecstatic bliss. Bhairava, you know, in Kathmandu, if you are growing up there, you can't escape Bhairava. There are some Bhairavas with big popping out eyes, and there are some Bhairavas with erection going on everywhere. Bhairava, Bhairava, Bhairava. And then we're like asked to ask ourselves, what is this Bhairava? Bhairava is the fullness in which there is both the absolute pure consciousness and the totality replete with your bliss in experiencing the modalities of the world. You are enjoying the world, and you are also pure consciousness. Do what you like to do, say what you say. The Bhairava doesn't care. That is the point of being Bhairava. When you are complete, you are not looking for somebody's compliments, because you are already complete. Bhairava is complete. Bhairava is not the norm that you like to give and he shall abide by. This Bhairava is the pure source of freedom, and that is sometimes is called Kala Bhairava, the Bhairava in the form of time. Ananyam tasyatam viddhi spanda shaktim manomayam. So within this Bhairava, you should recognize that there is this power, potency in the form of pulsation, in the form of the mind, our mind. If Bhairava is this totality, gazing totality as I am Purno of what is Bhairava. We had a very fat guru, one of our gurus. When we were young, we were nasty, and we named him Pushta, full Bhairava. It was not disrespectful because we are naming after God, because some Bhairavas are really, you know, honking big and very full. So Bhairava is this full. And one of the reasons why we love that name for our guru is he would simply laugh. When we are having these philosophical problems, and he would find a way to joke about it. And he would make this whole logic learning as if some kind of like a comedy show. And then we love this because there is this fun bliss in the presence of Bhairava, fullness of Bhairava. Yathaikam pavanaspandam ekam aushnaya nalo yatha chinmatram spandasaktischa tathaivaikatma sarvada. Just like wind and the breeze are not two different things. Again, another example it brings. The same way the fire and the heat are not two different things. Chinmatram spandasaktischa, pure consciousness and its intrinsic nature of pulsation, vibration. These two are also just one and not occasionally. Some are inherent properties, they are permanent. This pulsating nature of consciousness is not occasional. You got long hair, I can't say it is forever. One day you got your mood and you can go and shave it. But you know, there are some internal properties that define you. You can just go and cut and get rid of it. Intrinsic nature. So this is the intrinsic nature of consciousness, that it pulsates. This pulsation is not just what the physicists can say, my friends, because this pulsation is the physicist's pulsation, also the cosmic vibration. Now you know what these quantum people talk about and all, but it's beyond that. It is the pulsation of the pang of life, that every cell is pulsating. It is the pulsation in your heart that gives you the sense of love. It is the pulsation of your being that gives you directionality, a sense of life, a sense of moving, being, belonging somewhere. And when we deny this pulsation as the intrinsic nature of our being, our existence, and then we will go for a spanda, pulsationless world. And what happens is, if this intrinsic consciousness is lacking this pulsation, this is as good as a dead log. There is no freedom to it. That is my fundamental, my Abhinavagupta's fundamental problem. You know, you have all enlightened, you work so hard to get your moksha or liberation or whatever that you call, and what you have turned yourself into is a dead rock. Good job. You can't feel anything anymore. Great. You look so happy, but inside not like a face only, you know. My wife worked in hospital sometime, and one day she comes and says, maybe I need to go and do some plastic surgery. What are you talking about? Because, you know, when she was in the reception and patient complained, she looked serious. She was not smiling, you know. You expect the hospital workers always smiling. And that is what you expect your enlightened monks to. Always smiling, not laughing, because that would be obscene. Look at this monk. He's like a joker. He's not enlightened. I saw him laughing. Oh my gosh, crying, that would be like immediate crime. He could be expelled right away. I didn't leave monastery, by the way, for no reason. Okay, I lived in monasteries for almost 12 years of my life. I could not feel. Yasyonmesha nimeshabhyam jagat satta layodayo swanubhutyatmakam swanta sthitam tad vidhi chinnava. Again, Yoga Vasishtha. Of whose unmesa, opening of the eyes, and nimesa, closing of the eyes, is the Jagat Satta and Sthiti and Laya, the rise and the duration and dissolution of the world. Then what happens? Swanubhutyatmakam, of the form of your own self-experience. Swanta Sthitam, situated within your own heart. This Chinnava, pure consciousness in the form of the sky, is that you should recognize this as that very self of the form of your own personal experience. This Unmesa Nimesa, I told you I was not going to find all the other examples and read from 20 different books I could have. I just reserved myself today to one single book and just few passages because, you know, it is easy to make people get lost and overwhelmed and give a lot of references. That is what I do in my occupation. I'm not here because of my occupation. I'm here to meet you guys who are like me, seeking and not willing to end the quest. And so the first verse in Spanda Karika, let me repeat and then repeat this a couple of times. First verse in Spanda Karika. Yasyonmesha nimeshabhyam jagatah pralayodayo tam shakti chakra vibhava prabhavam shankaram stumaha. Now Yoga Vasishtha. Yasyonmesha nimeshabhyam jagat satta layodayo swanubhutyatmakam swanta sthitam tadvitti chinnavaha. In those days, we do not call plagiarism. These days, they would be called, this Yoga Vasishtha is totally plagiarizing a tantric text. There would be a court case and a hearing and all those things. Those days, we had the freedom to integrate ideas from different schools. And Yoga Vasishtha, for you, my friends, gives such a beautiful example of how early this Tantra and Vedanta were merged, and how we have to keep what is the point of keeping this particular way of thinking alive is because, number one, as soon as we express the word Agama or Tantra, it has been given a bad name. And when such a beautiful philosophy has been disdained, it comes to our moral obligation to find out the truth so that we know for a fact whether what it has been labeled for is true, or if not, what can you do about it? That is number one requirement. For our own life, you know, pain bearing is not easy. We lose our loved ones. I lost both my parents within the last 5 years. It is painful. And it feels so good to say, I don't have parents because I'm eternal soul. These were not my parents. Or lose, you know, some relatives and people and say, I do not grieve because there is nothing to grieve about. Nobody is come to being, nobody dies, nobody gets old. That is one way of living life. I don't know though. You know, living with fire. is not easy. Turning down the fire is stupid. Living with pain and suffering hurts is not easy. But closing yourself the possibility for which you are here in this world, divine presence in this world, that has given you this tactile sensation, your sight and your hearing, and that has made you capable of experiencing yourself in the effulgence, in the expression of consciousness in these modalities. I will just cite the last verse. Nija nijeshu padeshu patantima karana vrittaya ullasita. Let my eye go to something it likes to see and my ear to some music, or let me taste and let me touch. I am this replete person, Bhairava, fullness. And within my fullness manifests all these modalities. You are these two. So 2 ways of Vedanta. I'm not even calling Tantra. 2 ways of reading Vedanta. And of course, Maitreyi didn't write a book, so I can't imagine what she would say. But, I'm referring to the conversation I started with. I think Maitreyi got self-realization deeper than Yajnavalkya, because Maitreyi could connect. Maitreyi could feel a continuity at the soul level with other person. Yajnavalkya couldn't feel that. He knew logic, he knew ritual, and he spectacularly failed in being human. And if self-realization is the abnegation of our humanity, what are you going to do with that? What is worth it? And if this feeling and being in love and crying for it is such a crime, let us all commit this together. Thank you, my friends. And I welcome questions. Jeffrey, good to see you.
That was an impossibly written which I want to ask a question, but also make a comment before I forget. Vaidara, fullness, the fullness, and also you vitamin, the fullness, food. And you also started out the story. What's the name of the highly realized woman, Divinity?
Maitreyi.
Maitreyi.
Mm-hmm.
You contrasted her. She didn't see any problem, but her spouse did.
Yeah.
He felt he had to discriminate the real from the unreal.
Yeah.
And you also had that wonderful talk about the peacock.
Mm-hmm.
That as an eagle, we don't see any colors, but then we have a peacock, there's all kinds of colors.
Yes.
And I want to make a comment about 2 birds. We have the emblem of the swan behind you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I understand
that's
the emblem of the swan is pure white. It's vidya, it's pure knowledge. And it represents metaphorically a situation where a monk can, by renouncing avidya, renouncing his desire, renouncing his attachments, he can reach a pure state of vidya, of knowledge, discriminating from the real from the unreal, becomes pure white, like the swan can drink milk mixed with water and somehow extracts the milk and gets rid of all that water. But I want to contrast with you brought up the peacock. And as I understand the story, the peacock lives in the middle of poisons. It eats poisons all the time. It eats desires. It eats our attachments. It eats all our loves and hates, everything. Our whole lives, it eats it constantly, yet it's the most splendid thing. Nothing hurts it. It just gets brighter and brighter and more beautiful by doing that. So I adored your talk about this embrace of what we are. Mother is embodiment, mother is desire. And this loving of mother, and not asking mother, burn away my karma. It's like, mother, bring it on. Bring on all the impurities, because that's my embodiment of you, is your impurities.
Thank you. Thank you for beautiful comments, Jeffrey. Give me the question. Ask a hard one.
Is, am I wrong, or is like, I want to hear more about the peacock. How do you started saying, we suffer all these things in life. And the Buddhist teaches you have to, yes, life is suffering. You have to transcend suffering. You're saying about, no, amor fati, love life. How do we transforming suffering?
I am not here to say that teaching is wrong. It's a situation of a half cup, you know. They're like little brats who complain mother is not giving a full cup. And I just want to drink what I have, and then I'll start complaining. But I just first want to have my sip, you know. I'm just like, Mom, I want this half. It's all empty. That's why emptiness, the whole idea of emptiness comes from a half cup.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's a embracing of what we have. Life never offers, you know, all the situations in life cannot offer fullness. We have to recognize internally what the form of fullness would be like in those situations. That's all. You have to replete like art, you know. You go and buy one art, you make your art. You are an artist, I know. And then, do you think ever that you have depicted everything best I ever wanted in this painting? I bet there is still something in completeness. I really still didn't get that quite right. There is still some room of improvement. I don't consider that a disease. I consider that the very fundamental premise of creativity, Mother Pratibha. Fools are so complete right in the beginning. First circle they draw and they fall in love with the circle they draw. I made a beautiful circle. And mom says, your circle is so beautiful. Dad says, your circle is so beautiful. And there is the sense of completeness. I'm complete. If you have the sense of incompleteness, there is room of improving. Pratibha does not let you feel your completeness. And when Pratibha is done, you are complete again. That recognition is different though. The completeness in the realization is to see the complete in the modes of the incomplete. I'm going to stop because you and I can keep talking forever. I'm going to take other questions.
That was a lovely time. I wanted to know if you would please compare the goal to be strived towards between Vedanta, Kashmir Shaivism, and Tantra, mother worshiping, Kali worshiping Tantra.
What Trika has been today also secularized in the sense that it's offered as a blend philosophy. At one time in my last talk, I tried to show how Advaita was itself a Vidya, some esoteric trainings. And then we lost those peculiarities and we flattened the field and we made that Vedanta as a pure philosophy. There were techniques at one time to go to that experience. And all we got is the logic and the final philosophy, but not the techniques. And in Tantra too, that is what we are doing now. We are also making it a flattened field of philosophy and dropping off the techniques. So what is this Kali and her rituals and her wrathful forms and euphoric expressions? They all come in the mandala rituals, meticulously progressing from one step to the next, from the cycle, the circle, the mandala of Srishti, the creation, the wheel of creation, Srishti Kali, the wheel of sustenance, Sthiti Kali, the wheel of dissolution, Samhara Kali, will of the inexpressible, nameless, the Anakhya Kali, and will of the self-illuminating form of Kali, Bhasa Kali. So in these wheels, there are actual chakras, really, like petals, and different deities invoked, different mantras are recited, and then what we are doing is making another flatland philosophy. So to me, what will happen as a consequence, maybe give 20 years, 100 years, and then we will turn that into pure Vedanta. And the benefit of that will be, we'll have the logic, but experience. Therefore, have this complexity. But you don't have to go through all the crazy inscriptions. There are like so many different things, and then you pick up one of the craziest examples. And am I supposed to do that? Am I going to eat that? Am I going to do that? No, that is very antithetical to Tantra. That is freedom. What Tantra is saying is, if they say you can drink, go boy and drink. That's all they're saying. They are not saying drink, because that would be injunction. That would be again giving another law, another rule. There's no freedom. Tantric premise is that you don't work abiding by these constraints. And when you say, I don't abide by these constraints, then I can do anything I like. Yes, you can do anything you like, but you need to also know the consequences of what you do. You see? So the thing is, gods don't like if you eat fish, and then the tantric guys come, you have to eat fish. Because you just thought you can eat fish, and that is how you worship God, by not eating fish. I'm such a pure Brahmin, I don't eat fish. God is so happy with me, I'm going to be liberated. And then these tantric spoilers come and say, have you not even eaten fish? I don't think you are going to get liberated. Because they have this not fish-eating ego. The purity is puritanistic ego. And you know that these egos are troublesome. That's all. But the rituals are not troublesome. They are always substitutes. Every tantric text, every Vedic text, the ritual objects are never a compulsion, always a substitute. Okay, let's go to the next.
I would just bring you back to when you were talking about your parents' death. It sounded like a direct quotation from the Bhagavad Gita. I wonder if you could expound on that and then link it into the different streams that you're joining.
No, I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, yes, of course, when it says that Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa nachayvana bhavishyama sarve vayamatah param, meaning it is not that you are going to cease to exist, or these people, or the kings. Not that we won't be here again, or these people around us. Is again a type of sense of giving continuity, or referring to the self that is transcendent to our manifest body. But I have to one day offer like a whole course on the Bhagavad Gita, because I do not believe that we are reading the Bhagavad Gita correctly. For that, I had given one talk on Swabhava. You may find that in YouTube somewhere. And that is just a glimpse of the way I read the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna is a dynamic character. He's not a monk, okay? So he's not teaching some cave philosophy. And he is Kala, the Bhairava. His time embodiment, what he says, Kalosmi loka kshakrit pravriddha, lokan samahartumiha pravritta. I am time, I'm death. What do you think I am? One time he was so annoyed, he picks up a wheel and goes to kill this bastard. Bhishma keeps killing people from my camp. And then, Bhishma, he knows. He's the only one then to know Krishna is God. He surrenders. You are almighty. What are you doing? You can't forget yourself. You want to kill me, but come on, you are God. You can't do this. And then Krishna comes back to his sense. Krishna can forget. Krishna can get agitated. Krishna can be aroused. Krishna can enjoy the world. Be like Krishna. And therefore, we need to reread Bhagavad Gita in light of who the narrator is. And there are, like the Sobhava is an example for why the Bhagavad Gita itself, and the closest, I would say, the sage that I revere for teaching us the Bhagavad Gita is Jnanadeva. Read his commentary. You'll love it. You can also read this Anubhava Amrita, Nectar of Experience, another small book that Jnanadeva wrote. Great saint, really, I bow to his knowledge. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Great theory, but what do you think about making one presentation of the practice? For example, a gura or the left-hand part of the Tantra, which Ramakrishna practiced 65 different Tantra practices under hierarchy. That would be very enlightening here for us. For some
So
kind of
one very enlightening practices, my friends, is happening this next Saturday is Shivaratri. And around 4 p.m. we will start worshiping Lord Shiva. You all are invited to my house. I'll write down the address there and you can copy. No reservation, nothing required. Just show up. You don't need to bring anything, just show up with an intent to worship Lord Shiva. And don't expect me to talk, give lecture. I will be in bhav. I will be worshiping Lord Shiva. So that is the way to do it. Please welcome.
I've been there.
Thank you. All right. Any questions? Are we done? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the answer to my question as far as what the goal is. For example, I think of the goal of Vedanta is to become one with conscious existence. And the goal of Kashmir Shaivism, I'm not quite sure, but it sounds like it's somehow to realize Shiva.
Let us start this way. The goal of Advaita Vedanta and the goal of Trika system is just the same, to realize who you are. In this realization, the difference is in the pure Kevala Advaita, we are told this consciousness is not dynamic. In the Trika, they say the consciousness is dynamic. But then what happens, the difference? What is the goal? Like, do I get to be united with God? Like just that metaphorically saying, that's just a way of conversation. A drop in the ocean started thinking, gained sentience. God will, it can happen, right? A droplet started thinking, I'm a luminous droplet. I'm a beautiful one. I'm not like these other drops under the water, they're dark, grumpy. They're always pushing. And then by the grace of God, he comes to realization, he just is the ocean. When he was thinking of himself a droplet, he still was the ocean. when I think of myself separated from the totality, I still am the totality. Whether calling it Shiva or calling it Brahman should not be a problem. Brahman is Shiva, is Brahman. The only thing is, one gives the philosophy of constant dynamism, and another is this resting in the absolute solitude. And in that sense, we are trying to explore the type of Vedanta that also embraces this dynamism, because we find that not only because last time I started invoking Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, not only in the teachings of Ramakrishna, we can find that also in Yoga Vasishtha. Therefore, what I'm saying is this whole deny type Vedanta is not the only Vedanta out there. Embrace Vedanta is also there. That's the whole point.
And then the Kali devotee,
Worship Kali. She's the mother.
and can
And-
we go on worshiping Mother? after
Absolutely,
the-
because it is the only way. Nava, this is Kevalam Jnana Sattayam Prarambhoyam Praveshane. It's like only through the grace of Kali that we can actualize our Shiva nature. As long as Kali wants this dance, Kali, dance. My friend sings that so well. As long as she's having fun, you can't help it. You are watching the show and she's dancing. Go worship Kali. Ma, I liked your dance a lot, but can we for a minute go and like be who we were? Like I and you are only one, you know? And then in this dance, I think we got a little carried away, you know? But as long as Kali wants to dance, the dance is going to go on. So worship Kali, that's the only way to go inside.
And if she shows us the one and who we are inside,
She shows us that we are her.
then is the goal to remain there or to come back and?
There is no, then when we know we are her, and then her dance is my dance. Right now, the pain is, I just see her dance. It's scary. You know, I'm like a little child wrapped around her wrist, and she whirls and dance and jumps and all the moves she does. And every time I'm like in this ghost ride. Have you ever been to ghost ride? You know, I'm just like so scared. Ma, I'm crying nonstop. Stop it. And then I will be the dancer. When I recognize myself as Kali, and I wouldn't be scared of her moves, because I would so much like to show off my breasts and dance. We're good here. Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pasyanatmani Maya Bahiribodh Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yah Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Nama Idam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. Om. Thank you so much.